you now for part 2 of this segment on how to move forward. I hope that you've been able to think about some of the things I talked about with planning. First of all, what are your goals with them while they're there at your house? So life goals. Don't forget to include yourself again on that. Your goals, what you want to do for that. So I think where I left off was basically my children will have gone through the whole science series at least once and hopefully captured a love for it. I really like the series that's by, what is their names? Apology is Science. They have a lot of hands-on, and Jay Wild. He has one that I kind of default to, like when I run out of anatomy this year, anatomy space in my book, or in lessons in the book, I'll probably go for over the summer to in the beginning. They cover things that I, as, again, a biology major, never really grasped, and he does it in such a simple way that to me it's like learning it all about it again. I think the excitement for me is that I'm not learning it for a test. My vision is I'm learning it to apply it to life, so that I can go out and I can understand this amazing world around me, so that in turn I can hopefully use it someday to make the world better. And if the kids see that and that that's your purpose and you talk about it, they can see maybe why they should learn about it, and they can capture that excitement. So, again, here we have science, we have history. What are some of the basics? Most of the other things, the basics like math and English, those are things that you learn kind of in the process of doing other things. There are some basics that you need to learn, reading or writing, or basic writing penmanship, I guess, I don't know. But even that's in the process of communicating your feelings in different ways. So those are things that will come up kind of as you're exploring these different areas. And that's one thing I love about the core and crest approach that you'll see in other videos. You think about it, you just basically see how it applies to this, is you go through and you think, how do I want them to strengthen their core this year? What core things do they need to work on? How can I change their heart and their perspective? So an example of that, so with the modern history, I want them to think, okay, what is the world I live in? How did it come to be to this point now? And what can I take from it and how can I learn from it? So that's the core of what I want them to learn. And so in order to do that, it's been awesome. We've had the presidential election this year. I didn't plan that. Heavenly Father did. He knew exactly what I needed this year as we were preparing this. So basically over the summer I kept thinking, oh, Civil War and modern history, I should do modern history, I should do modern history. And I would keep putting it out of my brain, and then it would come back, modern history, Civil War, you should do that. And I saw this series, this U.S. History of Us on a friend's shelf and thought, I need to learn that. That is fantastic. I need this stuff. And so that's how it came. Now God knew exactly what was going to be happening this year. He knew where my older kids were. He knew that my 17-year-old transitioning to 18-year-old, transitioning to adulthood, needed to kind of see his place in this world around us. He needed context of what he was emerging into. And so that's why this modern history period is so powerful. And I didn't think of that. I'm really great looking back and going, oh, that's so cool how it worked out. But you'll find that there's just a few ideas that keep kind of tickling the back of your head. Like, oh, I guess I should do that one. And so that's what I do. And so I think of the core. And the crust things, I don't really worry about so much other than putting them on the page. So if your child is really struggling with spelling, and for me that's a leadership thing, then I'll put that over here kind of. Maybe you can even do this visual for each of your children. What do they need in their core in these different areas? In leadership. Maybe they need to learn in, let's see, in geography, conquest, Eureka, and imaginative arts. What do they need to learn in these different areas? Maybe they don't need to learn anything specific in those areas. Maybe you think, oh, they just need to learn more about leadership. Fantastic. That will come into context as you use it in your class. You can say, oh, I feel like they really need this. They have this gap in history, or this gap in this particular area in science. Okay, well, let's see. How does that affect their core? When I think of anatomy, that's what we're studying this year. That affects also where I'm at, who I am, where I'm moving forward. So I make that connection between modern history and anatomy. Now again, that's one of those kind of in hindsight connections, because I felt like, hey, there's this great book and I think I want to learn more about it this year. And so we studied it this year. And then we did the modern history, and I'm seeing throughout the year the connections that are made. I feel like there's so many connections that can be made through all of our areas of learning that's honestly kind of overwhelming. A little bit background to this, and I learned this year as we were talking about anatomy. You have, I believe, is what it said, over 1 billion neurons in your brain. Now, if you imagine your brain, here's your two halves of your brain, you have all these little neurons. Thinking comes as you make connections between these neurons. I call them brain bridges. In Little Britches, his father talked about character house. How each time you do something bad, you're ripping up a board in your character house. Each time you do something good, you build it up on that. And before I even knew about neurons, I told my kids that you're building brain bridges all the time. Anytime you make connections, for instance in piano, I talk about this. If they play it wrong, then what I'll do is say, oh, you just made an incorrect brain bridge. Your fingers want to go to that. So what you need to do is you need to build a stronger brain bridge by repetition going over that. They understand this context, or this way of explaining things. When I ask them to do things repetitively, I said you're building brain bridges so it becomes so second nature you don't have to even think about it. That's why we do math and addition and subtraction. It doesn't mean they go into it joyously still, but it gives them a comprehension and understanding of why they do the things they do. Alright, so going back here to planning out your year, that's really pretty much all I will think about through the year. I mean, I'll think about big things. You know, she talked about social, Tiffany talked about social needs. This is a fantastic time to think about that. What social needs do my kids have this year? My kids have been socialed out. This has actually been a fantastic year for them to come to home and say, ooh, who am I? Who's this family that I'm a part of? Because we were so extended to different areas, and it's been beautiful. It's been fantastic. It's not for everyone. We have a big family, and they have those social opportunities. My family does, just by being together. So not everyone will have that, but you do need to think about what are their social needs. That to me is part of this. If they need that, if they need to be artistically expressing themselves, because that's a part of who they are, that's a part of their core. I have one of my children who I feel like needs to have more confidence, to realize that she has a voice, to be able to speak more clearly about that and share that voice with others. To me, that's core and craft skills together in imaginative arts. So we'll be doing plays, or probably because we have, maybe we'll do a play, we'll see. Probably during the summer. But what we'll do now, I think, is we're going to do a poetry recitation challenge and see who can memorize it, kind of like Anna Green Gables. I love classics. They have so many great ideas and ways you can do to help your children excel. So we'll probably do something like Anna Green Gables did with her, the Highwayman Riding, and have some kind of competition, or I don't know. I'm not really good at competition because I think everyone is awesome, and I don't care what age or level they're at, that if they were here and they jumped to here versus someone who was up here already and went this far, I like to recognize and acknowledge that huge leap that was there. So there is something to be said for competition, healthy competition. But anyway, so we'll probably do that for her because she needs that. So at the beginning of the year, that's a great time, and then also kind of midway through the year to decide how you're going to incorporate the social. Do we need more social this time, or do we need more stay-at-home time? And generally, I've heard from homeschoolers they need more stay-at-home time because they're so busy. And that leads me to kind of these questions here that can be applied at any one of these stages of planning. So you want the blank page for the life, for the year, then I do it kind of for the week. I don't do it for the day necessarily. Sometimes I will. Then you want to follow inspiration. Some people may disavow that there is a God, or say, I don't think disavow is the right word, but not acknowledge that there's a God or a conscience or motivating factor. But you've heard people from surgeons to generals who have said, follow my gut. I had a feeling. I thought this might be true. You have it. Everyone has it in them. So follow that and write it down. Even if you're not prepared to act on it yet, write it down and validate that inspiration that you got. Then, what you want to ask for is eyes that see. Okay, what is really worthwhile and why? Go through, use this blank page as you're talking about your kids and their social needs at the beginning of the year. Go through and say, okay, these are all the social things they're going to do, or classes outside of my home that they're going to do. Then you look through and you say, okay, Heavenly Father, help me see what each one of these things will provide. So speech and debate, I looked at that and I thought, okay, that will help them to have clarity of thought, an amazing mentor. Steve Martin was fantastic if you're ever interested in doing something like that. They'll have the competition that my son needed, opportunity to excel in front of other people, and he studies core issues and asks them to really come back and analyze what their perspectives are on those issues. So I thought debate was worth the time it would take to go. Now you might have a class that's like an art class. Like for my kids, going to an art class consistently is not worth it because I can provide a lot of that at home. Not that I do, but it's not worth taking time out of my schedule to go to someone else to do that. I just need to be more focused on providing that in my home. But art, there's things you can learn there. If they need to be mentored, if they need to be expressive more, if they need to, there's so many things that art also to train the mind and the eye. Maybe your child needs that. And so try to think of everything they're doing. Maybe they have a friend that's there. Maybe that satisfies a social need that they have. Don't be trying, if you say, my kids just need social, they don't just need social. What they need is they need positive interactions with people that will build them up. Sometimes that means your home. They need to find out that, hey, my home is okay. My home is a good place and a safe place. Because I believe that that view of their home can transfer to themselves. That I am a good person and I can be by myself and find validation in who I am. I don't have to hide myself in front of other people. I don't need to seek their validation to build up who I am. Now, I do agree that there are kids that need more social than other kids do, more time, the extroverts versus the introverts. But you also need to be mindful that sometimes this cry for social is actually a cry for acceptance. And sometimes that acceptance is not going to come from those social environments. It's going to come from within. And as you do devotionals and as you validate and fill their love cups, it'll happen. Side note on filling up love cups, 5 love languages are fantastic. I like to go through and, as I'm talking about my blank page, you saw a lot of them when we're, spend more time with them, back rubs, what do they need? A friend said it was called attachment parenting. She's done a lot of studies psychologically with children, childhood development. And she said that if you just, again, follow inspiration, trust your gut, and your gut says, hey, reach out and stroke your child's arm right there, just let them know you're there, do it. If you look them in the eyes and say, hey, this is the moment you need to look in their eyes and say, hey, you're awesome, do it. Sometimes I figure that it's going to be so overwhelming to think, well, all the things I should do to fill their love cups, when really I'm getting those little instances here and there all along the day. For instance, the other day I had some time. It was Friday. It was awesome. And I was sitting there and the thought came, you should go read it to the little ones. I read for an hour and a half with my little ones upstairs as they were just sitting there looking at me, and they'd taken something in my lap. My 3-year-old fell asleep in my lap. I have not done that for a very long time outside of the structured, okay, it's quiet time, let's read now. And it filled their cups. Like the 5 of them were sitting there just soaking in what I was saying. I could see that they felt loved. Just trust your gut on those things, okay? And relax, breathe, take your mommy calm. You're doing better than you think. So, as you're looking at these different social needs, look for eyes that see. Look at these classes. I look at my classes, Authors in the Attic. I do that because it's fun. You get to sit and you can be inspired by each other. Honestly, a lot of the kids, it's like the 10-minute crunch time before Authors in the Attic, and they smell those cookies. They're like, I want to be there. And so they hurry and they're jotting down. Those are funny poems. I put them on Poems Wombs. You should check them out. They're hilarious. Some of them are a little less appropriate than others, so just, read it with a cautious eye. But it's just really fun. So I look at my different classes that I do for the year. What am I going to incorporate this year? And sometimes I end up taking some out. I look at the different lenses. I look at my Mondays. Like, what do I want to do this year? So this year I want to basically do it with devotionals and maybe some word studies. That's all I felt like I needed to do on Mondays. And then really focus on their faith in God, their duty to God for our church, and their scouts. I don't do it every week, but it's a day that I have set aside that I can work on that aspect of their leadership. So the other thing I planned for this year, GeoConquest, I wanted them to do some state, learning of their modern history. Some states, we have our state reports, we have our world summits that we do, and then we have our actual history from the history of us. Okay, so I knew I wanted to kind of do that for the year. So that's kind of our structure that we set up for the year. And I knew I wanted to do anatomy and some science projects. So that's what we do this week, and then we do science and math games, not as often again as I'd like, maybe 1 a week. But still, it's there and something to do. And then imaginative arts. That one I kind of leave to, and no, it's fun to be artistic to me. And so a lot of times that's one of our Authors in the Attic, we have that. But then we try to do art projects. We've done like 5 so far this year. But hey, it's 5 more art projects than a lot of people do in their whole life. So we're good with that. And I might do that more individual based. So that's kind of, honestly, that's how I look at my year. And it's not a lot of things that are in there, but you'll find that the time fills, especially as they're doing their own accountability reports and they're doing their own areas of focus and you're doing your own areas of focus. That's all I can do. Oh, another one we do is thinking about thinking on leadership days. I forgot about that. And Aspire. So I just think of books, again, that I want to have done throughout the year. So that's how you plan your year. Sorry, this is getting kind of long, but hopefully you can pause and then I'll go back and look through it later. But I just had these ideas burning and I'm like, I've got to get these down and share them with Tiffany because she's awesome. And yeah, it'll help other people too. So then I look at my month. Okay, as Tiffany acknowledged, I have my 7 monthly themes. And I just kind of go through, and it's nice to give kind of context to learning, and they're default for me. First month we think about happiness. How can my children find a really deep, rich sense of happiness? And this year, I think it was stewardship. So I'll take that in point. So having stewardship. And the fun thing about this is I started off the month thinking, hey, we're going to focus on stewardship this month and how having appropriate stewardship, because we were moving outside and inside the house, how that can make us happy. We take care of what we're doing. How can that make us happy and have a meaningful life? That morphed, because at one point, so I do that through devotionals, and I was trying to keep my mind open for connections. What am I learning in these other areas of history or in science that can validate that? They're there. It's so cool. They're there. Then I morphed it kind of into charity. It became charity. Let's see, if I have stewardship, I also have stewardship over how I treat other people. And so we started focusing on charity more in our devotionals. And, you know, I don't know how much they're logically making all the connections that I'm making. And that's okay. There are a lot of devotionals afterward where no one says anything. But then they'll refer to something later and say, hey, remember that movie? Remember that thing that we watched? Or remember we talked about this? I addressed it on my website or on our Homeschooling for the Bees blog. But there are some basic areas I go to for devotionals. One is the Book of Virtues. I love that. One is the Life of Christ Bible videos. Another one is Mormon messages, or I am a Mormon. That's for our religion, obviously. But I mean, we've done Mother Teresa, and we've done the Dalai Lama. We've done some other just inspiring people. Olympians might be cool this summer. You know, let's look at Olympians. What makes them click? You know, what I like to do is just think, what principle do I want them to learn this month? And so that's what we kind of cover during devotionals and on leadership days. Then, as I study these other exciting things, then we just kind of bring it in. So the principles at that point are more, you're looking for evidence of that principle in the other things, but you're also learning just for the joy of learning that other subject or whatnot. Okay, so that's kind of how I cover the monthly theme. During the month, I think that's all I really planned for the month, is what theme we're doing. And then if I need to reevaluate which classes we're doing, sometimes I'll do that at the beginning of the month. Oh, I also put up if there's like a major book to read, like for our book discussions, or like which book. So this is like for our great books discussion that I do with Tova and Kel. Which great books, I put that on the board so they know what that is. Which history book we're going to be covering, because we do one of those little books a month for the history of us. This month we're on book 8. And then I'll also identify if there is a family book we're reading. I know how to spell, really, too. So, for instance, this month I challenged them to read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And that's just because someone mentioned it on Sunday, and it happened to come up again with something else. And so I'm like, hey, that must be a sign. Let's read it together. It's really spontaneous, honestly. But then I find it gels. Oh, I'll also do a poem. A poem. Sorry, from Matilda. Love that movie. Okay, so we do a poem for that month, or a scripture or something. And that's something we do at either breakfast or we do at other times. So that's kind of my month planning that I do. And it's nice because I already have my year planning in effect, so I don't have to go through and decide which anatomy class or what other classes I'm going to have structured through the week. It's pretty much just already set in place just which things we're going to cover. Alright, so that's our month. And then we go through and I will identify my week. This is where you get into more detail of the core and crust, the week and the day. I gotta kind of, maybe I won't put them together. So my week, when I look at my week, I'll look and say, okay, what do I need to read? I need to read. And then I will go through and I'll identify what I need to read to prepare and which days I'll need to do that on. I don't have to do a lot of, what I try to do is I'm reading for like Aspire, which is first thing Monday morning. I try to think of one activity that could go with it as I'm reading through it. For instance, it was about Inspire, which also meant expressing gratitude to people. So we just took a minute to write some letters, a letter to someone to express thanks. And that was our activity. I might pull in a video to go with it. So sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And so just as I find that as I'm reading and I just prayerfully go into it, ideas will start coming. I think that this happens more as you validate ideas. So don't block it out, because I believe the second you start putting up walls to block out those ideas, maybe the first ones are lame. I've got a lot of lame ideas that I haven't acted on. But if you start doubting your ideas right at the first, you're blocking out ones that are awesome later. So here's your mind, and you're reading, and you're thinking, and it starts going, what about, and you're like, oh, that's stupid, oh, that's stupid. And you start eliminating it. Guess what your brain starts doing? It's like, oh, I'm an unhappy brain. oh, they don't trust me, they don't love me, and you shut down inspiration. Okay, so what you need to do, and I learned some Riding with Your Shoes Off by a really awesome lady years ago, just let those ideas free flow, okay? Write them down if you feel like there's so many. Most of the time there are not, but sometimes there are. And then later, go back and choose, oh, I want this one idea. Okay, don't be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of ideas. I believe it's inherent in everybody, but I think that some people have been shutting them down for so many years that they don't even, there's so many walls there that your brain's like, yeah, you don't want to go with me. So, I'm shutting down here. So as you're reading, just keep your mind open to ideas. Think again with the different learning styles. Think of your children that are there. My daughter Lily's the one that comes to inspire with me. She likes to do hands-on things. Discussion isn't very valuable. She has some deep insights, but she learns more through the process of watching and listening and acting through something. And so I try to think of one simple thing that we can do to reinforce it. Sometimes I'll get really crazy, like with our time machines that we have on Tuesday sometimes, and I'll have this huge list of ideas, like we do this, 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 and then as we go along, I can see kind of their eyes going, and they're like, oh, I think we're done for today. And I kind of glimpse through the things I had left to do, and if there's something that I feel like will prick that up and again, just as a closure, then I'll do that to kind of leave them on a positive note. But just think of the different learning styles as you're planning out your week. And what's cool about that is I just think, what do I need to read? We already have the basic structures in place. And then I think, what core and maybe what crust is really what I think about. Because the core I've already kind of taken care of the month and the year. What crust activity should I incorporate here? Which is fun because then you can fluctuate it. You can say, this week I can really focus on addition, subtraction. This week I can really focus on geography. This is fun because I think that too much crust focus can really, it's cool. I didn't think about this before. But if you focus so much on the crust, it's like you're building up on that crust. You're almost kind of shutting down what's happening on your core when you have so much crust, if that makes sense. If you're spending the majority, like say this is the amount of time you have with your child, and you're spending this much time on crust, and this much time on core, they're not going to let that core shine out. You're really minimizing your core. Which is cool though, when you think about it, I believe that anything you put to your core actually expands your ability to do more crust. That is so cool! I didn't think about that before. I love this. Because if you look at that, if you know mathematically, as you have the same amount of crust on the outside, well, the same proportion of crust on the outside, and if you push out that core and it maintains that same thickness, your crust actually gets thicker too, and there's more opportunity and more room. But this way, you'll actually run out of space. And you see people who are so limited, so much information, so much crust skills, they don't know where their core is anymore. So, think about core and crust. It makes you put it in their proper perspectives. I do a lot of crust stuff. We do a lot of things that are memorization, but I want it to be fun for my level learners and challenging for my scholars. So the different environments for scholars, do testing or oral presentations, things like that. So, let's see, so that's basically my week, and it's awesome. Again, I've said my blog, I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you can see in my week that it's kind of really intense, more preparation, than by Friday it's like, ooh, let's just sweep up the different things. And that's when I like to have like social groups, things like that. That's a good day. But that's what I have experimented with over the years, and so that's what works for me. So what you need to do is experiment. Try a lot of things. I'm going to go, oh, I need Monday to recover from the rest of the week. Let's do Tuesdays our big day. Do that. Tuesday through Friday. You can even start little and go bigger. Maybe that's how your family's ebb and flow goes. So really just, maybe you catch the excitement at the beginning of the week and get bigger, bigger, stronger, stronger, and then jam! You're ready on Friday for partiness and awesomeness, and then you recover over the weekend, build up again. So play with it. Maybe yours is like this. Maybe it's like big in the middle of the week, little at the end. You find your own flow for what you feel like works. But it's important to recognize that. Recognize the flow and don't fight against it. I tried that. It doesn't work so well. Okay, no scholar classes for my family on Fridays. It doesn't work, or for me, I guess, is what it is. Okay, then it starts planning your day. So last thing I want to cover today is, now I look at my day. Okay, I try to wake up always with a prayer and try to get a little bit of scripture reading in. Try to do my war room wall, if you want to read my Lazarus blog about that. Just what are my deep needs. I try to refer to this, my pages that I did for the week. What haven't I done yet? Have I not gone on a date yet? Oh, maybe I can do that today. One thing I do, because I have a lot of kids, I like to give them each a day. And so like Monday is Hava's day, and that's the day when she picks a song, she says the prayer. I try to go on a date with her, spend a little extra time with her that day. I try to, do her piano lesson that day. That way it kind of divides it up for me, a piano. This is I have Piper, and then I have Hiram, I have Lily. There we go. And then we have Drew. Okay, Tova and Kel. Tova's kind of doing her own thing now, and Kel, I've been doing a lot with him anyway, throughout the week. And I try to be mindful of that. Maybe Saturdays I'll try to do something with them then. But specifically with them academically, I kind of think, what do I need to do today? Like I might work on Hiram Scouts that day or do things with him. So as I'm going through my days, first I look at whose day is it and do they need any special attention this day. I look at my link page for the week and say, what haven't I done this week so far? I look at the different classes I have that day, and then I'll plan it up here like this. Here you have, I've shown this before. Let's kind of go through it again here. You see that? I'll kind of go through and outline the day. You can see there's not a lot of structure to it. We have structured time, not content. We have a devotional, so important. I'm going to go exercise. This is just for everyone to know that Tova and Keller are going to go. Lunch. See, academically, I have that room. That's when I read with my kids. That's when Drew's like, hey mom, I need some help with math. That's when we do those things. Lunch, leftovers and sandwiches, quiet time and reading. That's very non-specific. I mean, I did some reading, we did quiet time. It wasn't as long as I would have hoped. But you see there's not a lot of time written down on here. 3 p.m. Beautiful Girlhood, Pride and Prejudice, we actually didn't get to that. But it was something we could have done, but everyone was kind of going through their flow. Beautiful Girlhood we ended up using as our ball that night. So we just said, hey, let's just use that. Let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone and be beautiful at the ball and be elegant, and actually ended up running around kind of crazy, but it was awesome. And so that was basically how I structured my day. I also like to put things on here that I'm trying to do. So that's kind of my personal goals. Oh, good, I didn't mark the floor. That's awesome. Okay, so that's how I try to do my days. So obviously hopefully this is helping, Tiffany. Hopefully this is more visual for you. Anyone else who wants to learn from it. Last thing I do want to mention with the days, is that still recording, Drew? Can you check?
It's still recording.
Okay, with the day.
Yes.
Last thing.
1 minute.
What? 1 minute, awesome. Okay, I'll just finish on this. Okay, go back to your gut validation. As you're worried about it, go back to that and say, hey, how am I feeling about this? And you'll find that if something's going wrong, you just need to tweak it. Okay, you either tweak it on the daily level, the weekly level, or is it like a monthly, I need a different theme this month, like our devotionals will change in our theme for devotional. Year, you can change up in the middle of the year if you need to. Start your year now. Hopefully this helps. You're awesome. Take a deep breath. Do those blank pages. Spend some time. Say, kids, I'm studying for awesomeness for your future. Don't bother me. Go do something else. And try to kill the electronics. Go on to another one. But anyway, love you guys, and I'll catch you later.